So the biggest mistake that I made throughout my language learning career, especially with Japanese, was actually trying to learn another language. In this video, we're going to be talking about the fact that I tried to learn another language straight after learning Japanese, and I think that caused me a lot of issues with learning Japanese and learning that language as well. So after I'd done the 18 months sort of period of learning Japanese, I'd been doing it full-time, immersion, 24/7. I was obsessed with learning Japanese. I've been doing this for, about 18 months. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm feeling kind of fluent. I'm feeling like, I can hold a conversation with a Japanese person. I can understand pretty much most of what's going on. And I was so ingrained in my listening material and in the culture that I kind of started to feel very confident in my Japanese abilities. I still wasn't there. I was still at a very basic level of fluency, but I had a good foundation that I could use. And then from there, I spent another sort of 6 months sort of doing stuff in Japanese, just sort of doing what I was already doing. And then during that time, I was actually in my second year of university, and it got to the point where I was thinking of what to do during my gap year. Now, in most universities throughout the UK, we usually have a year in between the second and the final year where you can usually apply for a job role, and you would basically go and work in the industry that you are learning, in the degree that you're learning at university, and get some experience. I wasn't too confident at the time. I will probably talk about this in other videos as well, but 24/7 immersion and sort of hiding away from the English language, so to speak, whilst you're living in an English-speaking country, has a few side effects. Namely, one of those was, my inability to talk with people. I got very nervous around people, and so applying for work at the time was sort of something I just couldn't do. I just felt like in myself that I was not ready for that. And so while all my friends were applying for all these really cool jobs, I was super nervous and didn't want to do that. So I decided that actually what I could do is try and go to Japan and learn, do something, maybe do a university course or something in Japan. And unfortunately, our university at the time didn't do any of that stuff. The only stuff that they did do was in the EU. And so I was kind of like, maybe I can just do something in the EU instead. Go to, there's lots of different countries that had all sorts of different opportunities. And I was like, I could do that, or I could, just go on and do the final year, but I didn't want to be left, I didn't want to be, a year out of sync with my mates and stuff. It would be very awkward trying to find housing and stuff. So in the end, I decided, along with my now roommate, to go to Germany for the year. And the plan was essentially that the course would be all in German. And so we had a year to learn German to a degree of competency that we would be able to take the university courses in German and be able to understand them in German, and we could actually answer in English. We could actually do all the exams and tests and stuff using English instead of German, which is awesome, because then all that meant was that we had to comprehend the questions and comprehend the learning material and all that stuff. And most of it, we were told, was going to be the same sort of material that we'd already done in the past year. So I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to learn another language, because it's going to be very easy. There's going to be very little risk involved. If we fail the course, nothing really matters. We just don't get any extra points towards our degree, which most people, you can still get the degree without using those extra points. There's just extra credit, essentially. You don't need them. And so it was this sort of, really cool opportunity that, we didn't have to put much money into it, and it would just be really easy to do. I was just going to be like, well, if I can learn German, then that's going to be another language that I can add to the list. I could be a polyglot. Wow, that'd be awesome for, YouTube and all that stuff. And so I got really excited about it. And we started learning German, and it went really, really badly. And some of you may be watching this wondering, well, how did you manage to learn Japanese but you can't learn German? Because German's, very close to English. It's a European language. It's much easier, so to speak, than Japanese. And I think this is where I made a massive mistake. I didn't quite have the motivation to learn another language. The motivation that I had to learn Japanese was something on a different scale, and I don't think I really understood at the time why I wanted to learn Japanese. Back when I started learning it, there were multiple different reasons. One of them was kind of running away from what I was really doing at the time, and it was a way for me to escape from everyday life. If I could just shut myself in my room and listen to Japanese for 24/7, then I don't have to worry about anything else, which is a very, not a very good factor, not a very good way to motivate yourself to learn a language, but that was one of the reasons. And I'd kind of started to deal with that, and I didn't really have that issue anymore. And so trying to learn another language without really knowing too much about it, apart from I kind of learned this in school back in the day, and I have a little bit of a basic understanding of some of like the real basic words. I didn't have any motivation to understand the culture, to really speak to German people, to really understand and use the language. My sole motivation was to get good enough to understand university lectures in a subject that I already found quite boring. And so it really didn't work out. I just didn't have enough oomph to basically do ajatt, basically immerse 24/7 in German. I guess basically what I'm trying to say is that I feel like if you're trying to learn a language and you really want to get to a high degree of fluency and you really want to progress and pursue this for multiple years, you need a real sort of spark of motivation. You need something that's going to last that long. You can't just sort of learn a language on a whim, on something like, oh, I'm going to, go there next year possibly and do this certain thing. Like even that for me was, for a lot of people that could be quite a motivating factor, going to study abroad in that language and use that on a daily basis. For me, that wasn't the case. I needed something else. I needed that spark that I had with Japanese. And without that, I don't think I could learn another language. I seriously need to be super, super invested in the culture and or a media type such as anime or films or, whatever it may be, to really get myself motivated enough to learn a language. Japanese was one of those things that was just, it was partially an escape, it was partially an obsession with the culture and partially an obsession with anime. And all those things combined helped me pursue Japanese for an over a 2-year basis, where I literally just did not stop studying. And I think without that, it's very difficult to learn another language, especially for me. For other people, that might not be the case. You might be able to be someone who can do that. But for me especially, that was something that was very difficult to do. Every time I went to go and immerse in German, I also felt bad about leaving Japanese behind, because I built up such a progress with Japanese. I built up 2 years of backlog of listening constantly to it all the time, and I'd really developed my level in Japanese and got really confident in it. And then I sort of just completely stopped that and went to learn a completely new different language without really doing too much in Japanese. So I felt really bad about that. I felt like I was doing a disservice to the Japanese ability and all that time I'd spent learning it. And I also noticed, my Japanese ability start to drop. The moment I stopped, doing it every day, the conversations with Natsumi, my girlfriend, started becoming harder and started becoming, less detailed, and it just became much more confusing for me. And so when I look back on that, what I really should have done is not taken that rash decision to learn another language and, we'll learn German in a year and we'll go and do a university course and say that I've, done a university course in German, because it had no real value to me, and it was just kind of something to do. And it looking back on it, it really doesn't make much sense to have done that. And I think sort of the whole process of switching to a completely new language and starting from scratch again, and being in that process of not knowing any of the words, having to immerse in everything and not understanding anything, when I've just gone through 2 years of building up my language ability in another language, and I can understand it and I can read it and I can enjoy myself in the content in it. Going from that super high to super low ability, even though it was a different language and I still had that Japanese ability, that confidence sort of etched away my ability to learn German. I would constantly have these thoughts of, can I actually do this? Do I have enough time? Is this the right move? Should I really be doing this? What if I get to Germany, I can't understand anything? What if I get to Germany, I can't talk to anybody? All these different things. And so it just really wasn't a good thing to do. And then, as I say, it had a huge impact on my Japanese, because then when I finally realized that this was a bad thing after about 9 months of studying and decided not to go, it felt like I wasted so much time not doing Japanese, and then all that went out, all that sort of progress that I built up, I felt like I lost it. And it was just this whole mess, really. And then since then, it's been a constant on-off struggle of getting back on the horse of Japanese, so to speak. It's been very difficult to sort of get back into that process, that mindset of doing it every day and making sure that I'm constantly reading and enjoying stuff in Japanese and trying to do that. I'm at that level where I can enjoy stuff, and that, I can enjoy anime, I can enjoy TV shows, films, read books or whatever. But because of that, 9-month period of not doing anything and my ability dropping, a certain amount, it has always had that sort of confidence sort of knock-on effect, I guess. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that if I hadn't have done that, I would have kept on doing Japanese, and I probably would have got to a quite high level and a quite high ability. I probably would have kept on progressing with it, improving things like my accent, improving my general comprehensional skills, my speaking skills, all that stuff. And instead what I did is decided to scrap all that work and all that progress that I made over 2 years to start again on another language, and then 9 months later down the line realized that I didn't actually want to do that, and that I hadn't made much progress, and I didn't enjoy the process of learning that language, which was then obviously a massive waste of time, and all that time I could have spent doing Japanese. And so I guess my main message in this video is that if you are someone who's wanting to learn multiple languages and you're interested in learning multiple languages, especially at the same time, I would highly suggest just focusing on one. You'll get a lot more benefit out of doing that, and you'll progress much quicker. And then once you've done that, seriously think about if you want to learn another language after that, because each language you take on is a massive, massive time investment. And it's one that if you realize 9 months down the line that you didn't want to do this, you're not going to get that time back, and it's going to be a huge, huge waste of time. And yeah, if I'd have put all that time that I'd spent learning German, or if I'd have not decided to learn German and kept learning Japanese, I would be really, really good at Japanese at this stage. Instead, it's caused this sort of rift with me in that sort of time period. Essentially, back then, I was so obsessed with learning Japanese, I was doing it every day, constantly, all the time. And I was obsessed with getting better and better and better. But because I had that sort of time period of 9 months of just getting off and getting out of the whole loop of things and not doing it so consistently, I've always struggled to get back on and keep motivated to do that. I think because I've had that sort of one moment of losing motivation, or getting outside of getting out of the loop of sort of my workflow and how I did things, it's been very difficult to get back into that. And so yeah, it's just, I think that for me personally has been one of the major downfalls. But saying that, I'm starting to get back into it. I've been looking a lot more into motivation and like how my brain works and stuff. So that's really interesting, and it's going to be stuff that I'll hopefully share with you in future videos. So if you are interested in that, then make sure you like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. If you are interested in how to get into more reading, then you can check out this video which I uploaded recently, which goes into a few different tips and tricks that you can do to get yourself more motivated and get much more reading into your daily routine. So definitely check that out. And just a quick thank you to all the patrons over on Patreon, especially Harry and all the other people who have supported me over the years. Thank you to all of you. And if you did enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe. It really does help me out and makes the video get pushed to more people. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. And if you've had any issues with learning languages, put them down in the comments below. I'm sure other people can probably learn from your experiences, so definitely do that. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.